he wasn't he wasn't hitting his kids to the point, God forbid, of criminal abuse, but he was smacking them around. The message was there. You listen, you're gonna get a smack. And she had to sit with him for a long time, and he said, it was he later on he did change. And he did realize that, hey, this is not the way you raise a kid. And he said the problem was, like you said, it was a cycle of abuse. He said, this is this went on this is all the way that we were raised in my family. And it takes a while to get out of that mindset. Now, in my generation, this is when Dr. Spock came along with his book and tried to introduce, say, there are better methods of raising your kid than always hitting them. And remember, my mother said, I read the Dr. Spock book and I just put it on the shelf and ignored it. He was so stupid. A lot of parents at the time felt that Dr. Spock was encouraging kids to be spoiled. And then when the Vietnam demonstrations happened and the campus demonstrations happened, Dr. Spock came there and actually, in one of the demonstrations, joined the college kids in this anti-war demonstration. And when he started to talk to them, he said, he said one of the mistakes he felt he made in his book was that he did not give tips on effective discipline.
Mhm.
He just knew that hitting kids was wrong and you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But when it came to, like, so what else do you do to effectively discipline your kids? And he didn't give those tools. And he said when he had a chance to actually sit and talk to these kids who were demonstrating, he realized a lot of them were very spoiled,
Hmm.
and a lot of them were very undisciplined and spoiled. Now, then, later on, it was like Nanny Jojo and other people like that have come along, and they have shown like really good nonviolent methods of disciplining your child, not letting your child get away with things.
I always find that interesting when it comes to, and I correlate this a lot to, like, I guess, the Jewish metaphor of when Hashem, I guess, kicked us out of Israel during the Chorban Beis Mikdash,
Mhm.
and that Israel is supposed to be a woman who her husband has left her, and and the whole journey is about the Jewish people finding our way back to our husband. And I always think of, like, listening and hearing and reading different mafarshim of what kind of position we are as the woman in this relationship, and how we can, go back to our husband and how to live our lives. And that's why I think, I'm wondering if I understood this correctly, but that's why the Lubavitch Rebbe is very big on having Jewish pride, is by being a proud Jew
Mhm.
that kind of coincides with this relationship where you're a proud person and you're happy with who you
Mhm.
are, you're happy in your own skin. Um, it's a half-baked idea right now. I'm still thinking about it, but how as us as a people correlate and how we're reacting nowadays, especially with a lot of Jewish pride nowadays, um, and how that correlates to becoming closer to Hashem and God willing bringing the Geulah and bring Mashiach. And that's something that I find very interesting in regards to how the psychology of relationships are nowadays, where it says that during the times of Mashiach, the woman will be revealed, women will be more outspoken. You'll have these moments that, by being the outspoken woman and being and Israel and Judaism being that woman representative, that will be that outspoken woman, and will be able to, I guess, just be. Again, I'm trying to make sure I understand this correctly, but just have the gall to just be there and come back to Israel and come back and just bring the Gula in a more trying to find the right word for it. I don't want to say like abrupt, but or egotistical, but a more
Proud.
proud, yes, more proud way.
Mhm.
Like, this is who I am. I'm here, and then we're not going anywhere. Kind of. I always kind of think of when it comes to, like, running closer and closer to the idea of, you don't need so much gevura. Like, you try to use a little more chesed, But again, it's always going to be going back and forth and debatable of like what kind of how much chesed, how much gevura, what can you do to really make this world a better place, because at some point you have some moments where you know when you're fighting all different types of entities
Mhm.
where putting a flower in their gun and saying "Don't shoot me" is not going to help. They do not care, and so that's really where you get to this point where you're trying to have that pride and that gentleness, but then realizing that sometimes you do need this gevura, and it goes back and forth and back and forth, and that's where like how it works is just you constantly go back and forth until you find a middle ground, and by that time the goalposts have already moved. So it's just a thing.
Rabbi Gordon, reminisces about his one of the battles that his father had to fight as a rabbi of a shul in New Jersey was he, the old generation would always go around with, it's schwer zu sein a Yid, it's schwer zu sein a Yid, it's hard
Yeah,
to be a Jew, it's hard to be a Jew. And he would tell his congregants, if you go around with this attitude, the schwer zu sein a Yid, schwer zu sein a Yid, he says, your kids are going to grow up with this attitude of, well, if it's so hard to be a Jew, why bother?
yeah.
And he also tried to impress upon the congregation to take pride in being Jewish and to look for, you know, like he says, take your kids to shul, have them pack shachmanis, have them bring them in, together, have the family like Hanukkah candles together and sing together and dance together, have a nice Shabbos, have nice Havdalah, do these joy, show the kids the joy in being Jewish, the joy and the happiness in being Jewish.
What part of being Jewish did you enjoy when you were a kid?
Remember the programs at the old Bet the on Garrison Boulevard. They had some really nice children programs. Remember for Hanukkah, there were Hanukkah programs. There were magicians and there were sing-along, nice sing-alongs, not the one that the principal had in the sanctuary.
Yeah,
That time when I think we've already we've talked
we've
about that
talked
a
about it.
few times on the
Yeah.
podcast. Um, but we had, I remember, um, one Purim, one really nice Purim program where they had a puppeteer
Hmm.
and they had a really nice puppet show and passing out the Hamantaschen afterwards. And I remember Sukkah's time, Shabbos having a really nice kiddush in the sukkah, beautiful sukkah. There, those were the
Were there ever
nice.
moments, I guess, maybe even as a teenager, you felt proud to be Jewish?
That's a very good question. I remember at our high school there was a Christian youth group called Young Life,
Hmm.
and one we used to have these dances like once a month. We had these really nice dances where they had a real band, not canned music, not a DJ, real bands that would come in and play, and they would have cake and soda, and the kids would dance like for hours. They were really nice dances, and there was this one band that came in and played a whole medley of Jewish songs, Having Nagila, Tzena, 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 and all these melody. And the Jewish kids went wild and formed a circle and started dancing the her and just started dancing and dancing and dancing. And so one of the Jewish boys whispers to me, but he says, "Eat it up, young life." He was so happy that we could kind of put it to the the
Why?
Christian kids like
Why? What would they do? What would the Christians kids do to you as Jewish?
anything in particular, but they had this youth program called Young Life and everything that they were so proud of. And
So let them be proud of it.
yeah,
What
but
was the problem?
but the thing is, we Jewish kids didn't have anything like that in our high school.
Oh, I see. So it's more of
But
like a high school rivalry kind of thing.
yeah, so we were kind of like we were really proud that we were
Got something.
actually doing something physically and basically not ostentatious, but the word overtly,
Hmm.
very overtly Jewish and out there for everyone to see by doing these Jewish dances that this band was playing.
So I think you tapped into something I'm very curious about the concept of being not just proud of who you are, but being tribal and about being in this tribal setting of identifying who you are as a yes. And okay, well, we'll cut back on the racial undertones and start with a basic concept. Tribal in the idea of my place, my space, my people, your place, your space, your people, and having like just a difference and maybe even a conflict. And it seems like you went to teenagers, of course, are going to be very tribal. They're the epitome of tribal. Eventually you grow out of it and you become like, whatever. But it's very interesting that as teenagers, the Jewish kids knew their place, and I guess the Christian kids knew their place. I guess the Christian kids had the opportunity to have like a Christian space, and the Jewish kids didn't seem to have a Jewish space in this public school.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I remember my mother had me had me join B'nai B'rith Youth, BBG, B'nai B'rith Girls. There was B'nai B'rith Girls, and there was the boys was I forgot what the boys was called. The boys was it AZA? Was the boys division, I think.
mhm.
I remember AZA. And they had like a big conclave. I remember going to this big like conclave that they had. It was like it wasn't particularly religious or anything like that, but it was like a Jewish identity, a Jewish social thing, but B'nai B'rith Youth at the time. And I remember going to their functions and their dances, and they would have also like picnics, hikes, type of some outdoorsy activities, things like that.
So you would
Yeah,
join this B'nai B'rith when you were a teenager and
yeah,
join these, I guess, Jewish youth groups.
yeah. That was the
Okay.
main Jewish youth group for like kids that were not particularly religious was B'nai B'rith Youth. Yeah.
Were there any other religious ones you were aware of, or it was just this one was the easiest one, or what was why this one?
There was one group that was a friend of mine convinced me to go to one time called Habonim, which I think it was supposed to be a religious Zionistic
Hmm.
youth group. I remember the girl in charge taught us a Hebrew dance, an Israeli dance, and a
Oh,
Hasidic nigun, and it
oh,
was the first Hasidic nigun I heard. It was the one that went bum ba da dum ba bim bum bim bum bum ba da dum ba bim bum bim bum bum ba da dum ba bim bum yeah. And I did not know it was a Chabad nigun at all until
okay.
later on when I joined Chabad and I heard it.
Yeah, continue. Yeah, I'm
And
listening to you.
okay, and I heard it, and I said, "Hey, wait a minute! I recognize that. That was the first real Hasidic nigun that I heard as a teenager that I danced to."
So there's actually a Japanese Jewish folk song. What happened was it's I there's a video and it's like a 25-minute explanation, but I can break it down to the best of my ability from what I remember. There was this, I guess this Zionist organization that had their own song and dance, and it was a Jewish song with a Jewish dance. And at the time of post World War II Japan, there was this Japanese cultural experts that were trying to revitalize Japan, revitalize you know a culture that's just been horribly defeated by America and the Allied powers. So they found this record with the song and the dance, and they basically promoted the crap out of it to the point that nowadays it's so embedded in Japanese culture, it throws a lot of people off, but it's actually a Jewish song, and they have a whole Jewish dance to it. And there's this one woman, I think, who was trying to promote the song, and that's what I thought you were talking about. Was there's another?
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember the exact.
When was this? What year? Do you remember what time span this was?
This was Yeah. So this was something where it was, I think it was like 1940s, 1950s when they just started it. And that's where I'm trying to remember what it was. Vishafte Mein Bissus, yeah,
Oh, Shabtai Mayim.
yeah. So this was Chef's Mind. That's what it was. And they had the whole song and dance and things like that.
But I'm looking at the music. this doesn't look like the Shafte Mime that we're used to, like Shafte Mime, Bisason, Mimane Ha Yeshua. That music does not look like that particular song.
It's not. It's something. It's probably something else.
It's
Um,
da 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 da
you're look if in
da.
case